change it, and that it caused all kinds of problems. There was all kinds of translating going on because I didn't do my job. So please make sure to choose your language at the bottom of the screen. For Vietnamese, you are going to choose the Japanese button. All right. So good morning, all. It is October 27th, and we are having our second DPAC meeting of the year. I want to thank everyone for coming. We have a smaller crowd than I'm used to, but I think we're going to have a good time all the same. And that means that you guys get to have lots of, you can tell me, you can say all kinds of stuff. We can have a rousing discussion. So there's a fair amount of things that we're going to go over today. I'm going to ask any of the parents that are here today to be able to introduce themselves, and like we did, gosh, it seems like forever ago, pre-pandemic. So again, really glad you're here. And for those of you that are able to watch at home, hello. So DPAC leadership. So my name is Sunny Tamarkar. I'm the president of DPAC. And then we have Jessica Contreras, our vice president, and Mindy Thomas, our secretary. All right. Well, for those of you that are here, you can either put it in the chat, or you know what, it'd be great to hear from you guys, and so that I don't have to talk for a whole hour myself. If you're going to just say your name, school, grade of your children, and if you're part of your school site council, because that's a big piece that I'm going to try to talk about today. I will start so that way everyone kind of knows where I am. My name is Sunny Tamarkar. As I said, I am parent of Neva, who's in 3rd grade, and Satara, who's in 1st grade. They are at Smith Elementary. And I am part of our school site council. And we had a meeting last month, and we'll have a meeting, I think, again next month. So would anyone else like to introduce themselves so we can get to know each other? And, you know.
I can go next.
That'd be great. Thanks, Mailet.
Okay, my name is Mailet, Mailet Centeno. My son is David, and he currently is in 2nd grade in Anderson Elementary. I am part of a school site council this year. So yes, I'm looking forward to keep on learning what business they do and learn how to be involved.
Well, thank you so much, Mailet. She's also the president of the DLAC. So, you know, like she's not just doing, she's doing a bunch of things, actually. So thanks, Mailet. And then I have Isabel here. Isabel Nishaw. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced that. You've got a child, Adrian, at Anderson. You're not part of the school site council. But we really appreciate that you're at work and you're still here. So thank you so much for being here. As I think anyone can tell you, the advantage of having these things online is that you're actually able to have people that are in the car or they're at work and they're able to listen in and be able to get this information and even ask questions. And so again, hopefully, maybe at the beginning of the next year, so in January, we'll be able to do some of these things in person, but still have the capability for our families to join in later, and of course, to have them recorded. So anyone else want to introduce?
Hi, good morning. Sunny. It's Michael Price. I'm driving, so I can't undo my camera.
Thank you.
But I wanted to join. I'm Michael Price. I am
Michael, sorry, you completely went silent. I don't know if that was true for anyone else.
Hello. Can you testing?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Sorry. I was saying I am a parent of a third grader in dual immersion at Twain. I am also on the council of our PTA as treasurer, and I'm happy and interested in hearing from everybody. Looking forward to hearing what you have today. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Would anyone else like to say hi and introduce themselves?
Good morning, Mr. Tamarkar and families. Just my name is Travis Collier. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. I just wanted to join you all and listen in and see what the subjects were about. I'm just always pleased to have parent involvement. Parent involvement definitely increases the academic achievement of our students. So the more parent involvement, the merrier. So glad to have you and hope you are safe and healthy during these times.
Thank you so much, thank you so much. This is the lovely Mr. Collier. This is a running joke for forever. So anyone, just so you know, this is the lovely Mr. Collier. We really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much. And then I see a message in the chat. Hi, my name is Carol Birch. I have 2 kids at Anderson, a 3rd and 5th grader, not part of the SSC, but happy to be here. Carol, thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. I think we have a lot of people from Anderson. So I have to say, Mylette, like, great job. Yeah, exactly. You get a round of applause. So again, thank you all for being here today. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll go ahead and move on. Oh dear. So I'm going too fast. Go backwards, not forwards. Sorry, a few technical difficulties this morning. All right, so here's our agenda for today. I tried to keep it pretty clean, and we'll have, I think, some time, hopefully, for some questions and comments and things like that. I wanted to start off kind of our year with just going over what SSCs are, so school site councils, and what DPAC is, the District Parent Advisory Committee, so that we could start off the year with people knowing what we're doing, why we do it, how we do it, the whole thing. And then I really wanted to, and then I was going to ask Dr. Julie Kane. So she is our Director of Special Projects, which, as far as I can tell, is hands in everything. And she's nodding yes. So, that's absolutely true. And have her kind of go over school funding. So I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of school site council and DPAC, and we can kind of talk about it all. But I think it is important for us to also understand, like, just the general funding and where that money comes from, and what our job is in terms of what we like specifically advise on, and then how the rest of it all works. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I too am a little bit confused as to what's going on, and I'm kind of the president. Okay. So first thing I wanted to say, so for school site council, so all of the different school sites, all 8 in our district, have a school site council. They meet at, let me tell you, all kinds of random times and random days, and there is no unified schedule at all. every school does their own thing to serve their own parents and students and teacher needs. And so that, which is great. It's fantastic because that means that every school has their own kind of plan for how to make sure that there's parent input on a lot of things. So the school site council is an elected group. Typically it is 10, there are 10 members of the school site council. The principal, 3 teachers, 1 additional staff person that's not a teacher, so a non-certificated staff, and then 5 parents or community members, so it can be both. And they have to be elected, so a notice goes out, and people can nominate themselves, or people can be nominated, but it has to go out to the school, and they have to put your name on a thing, and people have to vote for you, more or less. And this group of people really do a couple of things, a couple of big things. And if I mess this up, it's Julie's fault. And so she'll correct me, and then it'll be fine.
All right, I better stay ready, so jump in. But I think you'll
Yes,
be
exactly.
beautiful. You'll do beautifully, I'm sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So the first job is to monitor our Title I funds. And Title I funds it's really money used for struggling students. That's it's federal money used for struggling students. Again, Dr. Kane, Julie, Dr. Kane, one or the other, I'm sure she responds to both, we'll go over kind of the details of the different types of money that schools get. But that's the school, that's the primary focus, is for funds for students that are struggling. And then they also develop and advise the school plan for student achievement, the SPSA. So one of the things that I have learned is being an active member of our school community is there are a lot of acronyms. There are a lot. There's nothing else to be said about it except there's tons of them. So if at any point someone uses an acronym and you have no idea, feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to try to monitor the chat while I'm presenting, but you guys can let me know too if you're there, or unmute yourself and ask, because chances are there's someone here that does not know what you're talking about, or does not know what they're talking about in terms of, oh yeah, there's this, you've got the LCAP and the SBAC and the SSC, there's a bunch of words that acronyms have already thrown around today. And so it is, I think that you all should speak up, especially when you don't understand things. I am often asking questions, and so I really want to hear your own, but I can always fill time. Don't worry, guys. So the SPSA is for each school, and it's a ginormous document. They are all posted on the district website. It's like Lawndale, oh man, trying to find the thing. It's LESD, and then there's an SPSA. It's like our school website, and then if you search SPSA, you'll see the SPSAs for everything. The current SPSAs for the 2021-2022 year, I think just got approved last week. And so because they were not approved by the school board yet, they weren't posted. So now they are, well, not now, but they will shortly be posted. And then you will be able to read this 100-page document for each school that has the full plan. So for those of you, again, it seems like some of you guys are not part of school site council. School site council meetings are open to everyone. They're open to the public. They have to be posted like 72 hours in advance with an agenda. There's a whole thing about it. And so they try to make it so that families can go to these meetings. All of these meetings for right now are done on Zoom. So you just have to show up. For the most part, nobody shows up except for the people that are in the meeting that are required to be there. But it's open to the public. So the public's not allowed to vote on anything. But if you want to know how the school is spending their money, reading the SPSA, posing questions, joining your SSC, those are all ways that you can have an effect on that. The other thing is that everything regarding this Title I money has to be voted on by the school site council. And for a lot of, like, again, I think for the vast majority of you guys today would see, I think it's mostly Anderson. There's a couple of Smith, I think, and Twain. But for all of the schools, they have people that are part of these committees, and we would really highly encourage those folks to come to DPAC meetings so that they can share what they've gleaned from DPAC on their way down. B, so that this space can be a more collaborative space. Virtually, it's really hard, but hopefully we'll be able in maybe January at the earliest, as long as the numbers stay low and yada, yada, yada. We can meet in person, and then we could collaborate. We used to come in and there used to be food and people got to chat, and then there was a presentation, and then people chatted after. It was quite lovely pre-pandemic. So it's something that we would like to be able to have happen again. And my fingers are crossed. And so for SSC members, or if you would like to be an SSC member, go talk to your community liaison, go talk to your principal and say, this is something I'm interested in doing. They meet rather infrequently, so I can show you the upcoming dates. Here are the upcoming dates for the different schools. So for us at Smith, we had one, I think, last month, and then we'll have one next month, and then we probably won't have one till, I think it's January. I have to look at the actual dates. They meet anywhere between 4 and 6 times a year, and each meeting is half hour to an hour tops. And they go through here the principal or whomever will bring up, oh, we've got this thing that we have to agree on, we have to look at. And parents comprise half of that committee. And so they're able to say, hey, why are we spending this much money on this thing? Is this thing helping or not? What's the usage? You can say things, and you can voice your opinions on, well, I don't know why we're doing this or what's going on here. But if the moment to be able to do that is going to be then, because otherwise we're going to have whatever. So as an example for myself, at my last school site council meeting, I asked, why are we spending money on Moby Maps, which my kid personally hates, and this program and that program? What does the usage look like? What's going on here? And the answer that I got back from our principal was that all of those programs we needed to get all of those programs in order to support short-term independent study. Because if a child gets COVID, or if a child is an immediate vicinity, we haven't had any cases at Smith, so we're very lucky. Then they could go on short-term independent study, and those programs are used to support them. And it's like, oh, now I understand. So I do think that it's really important for us parents to, again, ask questions, question things, again, voice our opinions about why or how, And if you don't get the answers that you want and you're not okay with them spending XYZ amount of money, then you can vote against things. You can abstain from things. And you can choose to, or you can ask, could I see more data? Could I see more data on, are kids actually using Capstone or not? Can we see more data on this or that? Does anyone want to say anything else about school site councils or just anything related to that? Let's see if there's.
I just add to that, and I'm glad you brought up the data, because we really do want to be making database decisions. So we have these programs, we can ask to see how students are using it, how is it improving, outcomes for kids. That's really the basis. All Title I is meant to improve outcomes for students. So, and that's why we do annual assessments, kind of evaluations of the way we're spending our money. And if we're not seeing the outcomes we want, we have to ask ourselves, are we using the program with fidelity? Or are we using it with fidelity and it's just not working? All those questions need to be addressed so we can fine tune and keep working towards the thing that will change outcomes for kids.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kane. I appreciate that, because yes, it's absolutely, we need to be able to monitor these things somehow. We have to have some sort of way to measure whether things are helpful or useful or being used or whatever. And unfortunately, even though my kid doesn't like MobyMax, that isn't, I guess, a sufficient reason to be like, well, we should axe that program. So moving on from school site council, I wanted to kind of show you the relationships to school site council, the other committees, and things on the larger level, right? So at your school, here on the left, at the school level, right, you have the school site council, this group of 10 people. You have the school admin team, right? So people that are in the school, your administrators and the like. And I guess your teachers and stuff too would be considered the admin team. You also have another committee, the ELAC committee, which is English Learner Advisory Committee. Those are for your English learners. And I think that's mostly Title III money. And so these are these kind of three groups that have to work together. Well, more the ELAC works with the school administrative team and the SSC works with the school administrative team. And the SSCs and ELAC don't, I don't know, they mingle-ish.
Well, they do mingle in that SSC must take into consideration the recommendations of ELAC. And so there's a forced intermingling that must take place. So they are closely related.
There you go. Thank you. And then we have that in the same way for the entire district. So there's the district admin team. You have the DPAC, so that's our committee, right? Who should represent kind of all of the schools, and ideally the SSC members will come to DPAC to be able to voice some of their maybe site concerns and maybe realize that, oh, it's actually a bigger concern across the board. Not very many students are using, like as an example, I do not know if this is true or not, but lots of students are not using Capstone at our school. Oh, if that's true for all of these other schools too, maybe we need to look at the effectiveness of this program. And then that could happen on a larger level. And then you have the District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC, that Mylette is the president of. And they, again, do the same thing that ELAC does, but on a district level as well. So for DPAC directly, so that way you all know what's going on. What we do, again, is just very similar to what the SSC does. We provide input on the Title I budget. We have input on the LCAP, which is the Local Control Accountability Plan. I think that's still what it is. Mm-hmm. Last year there was a whole attendance plan thing, but this year I think it goes back to normal. And then the other things that we have kind of input on are our district family engagement plan, so across the district. And anything, this is the part that's always a little fuzzy for me. We have as a committee, we have input, or we can voice our concerns or say things to the district on kind of anything, but really like especially for those that are low income and are underperforming student groups. And so Title I funds, which we are required, the district is required to have a committee for this across the district, are for low income and underperforming student groups. And so those are the students that we should always be paying attention to and making sure that they are getting their needs met and they're getting all the support that they need. But we also can, again, as a larger group, we can give input on anything. As you know, I think last year, a lot of what DPAC did was give input, especially things relating to COVID, because it was such a district-wide, there was district-wide policies, there was district-wide lots of things it was less about the school site itself, and it was more about what the district's policies were on a lot of things. And so that's what DPAC does in a nutshell. It's a big kind of thing that we do. And for this year, we have our own goals, which are the same as our goals from last year, which is to make sure that people know to come to DPAC, make sure that families know how things work in the school district, which is why we're asking Dr. Kane to talk to us about school funding today. And then strengthen the communication and for us to be able to talk to each other as a parent community. So my hope is that as we're able to come back into in-person, events and the like, that then the parents can really communicate with each other. And as the other thing that I'm really going to try to push this year is increased coordination between DPAC and SSCs across the district, and to have things interactive. Again, sitting and listening to me talk for an hour, it might be okay, but I think it's better when other people voice their thoughts and their opinions, and we can have a robust discussion. So that is our goals for this year. And that's what DPAC does in a nutshell. So before I hand things over to Dr. Kane, did anyone have any questions relating to SSCs or DPAC? Feel free to type in the chat or unmute yourself. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised and I'm not seeing any thing in the chat, but you feel free to, again, I'm going to have another opportunity a little bit later to just have an open forum. So I guess without further ado, I'll stop talking and Dr. Kane can go ahead and talk to us about funding and about money.
Money, fantastic. Thank you, Sunny. Oh, thank you I'll share my screen now. What we're going to take a look at today is something I've shared before, but it's always good to repeat because it is a lot. It is confusing. Much of this chart you see in front of you is stable and stays the same. And yet, because of COVID and school closures, a whole host of other funds came in last year and kind of blurred things and made it more difficult to keep track of who's on first and how does all this work. So I wanted to, if I were really clever and had time, I would have animated this so you wouldn't be seeing all of this at once because it's a lot, but I encourage you to start at the bottom. We think of this as a cake, or I think of it as the foundation of a house. The foundation is the first part, and that is our largest source of income for schools. That's our LCFF, local control funding formula base. Those are our state funds. Okay, that's the money that keeps the lights on and the doors open. That, you know, gives us school buildings, gives us a principal at each site, gives us teachers at each site, pays the electric bill, you know, has books and supplies and all of those things. That is what the state puts in for us to have schools open, period. On top of that now, the local control funding formula also provides supplemental and concentration funds. And that's extra monies given to us from the state to improve services for low-income foster youth and English learners in order to meet our statewide goals. So again, still from the state, but it is extra. If we did not have low-income students, foster youth, or English learners, we would not get any of those funds. That determines that those students bring that extra bit of funding in. And so we're supposed to use those funds to support those children. And you will see, even though the single plan, the school plan for student achievement, the goal of this whole group and school site councils is to focus on Title I funds. We do also include your supplemental and concentration funds in your plans so that you can see the whole picture of the funds that come to the school site. But the base funds don't come to your school site. They do in a sense in the fact that the people and the services are there, but you don't receive dollars that you can go spend. LCFF supplemental and concentration do come to the school site for spending for the needs of students. They technically are outside the bounds of school site council to make decisions on, because school site council is for federal funds. That's for the Title I. But you're a family in one, you know, all those funds commingle, so you kind of have to know how they all fit together. So those are all the state funds. So you see the little green, I don't even know what this thing is called, but the symbol. So these are state funds, LCFF, base and supplemental. Then on top of that, we receive supplemental funds from the federal government. And that in amounts is much smaller than what we get from the state. And yet we spend all our time talking about them, right? Because these are the supplemental funds that are put in place to support our students. So Title II and Title IV are the first level of supplemental funds that enable us to, Title II is for professional development specifically. So if we want our teachers to know how to provide intervention for students who are struggling, these are funds to support professional development for that. If we want our teachers to be able to plan lessons that engage and support students who have special needs, students who do not speak English as their first language, students who are below grade level in a certain area, these are funds we can use for that type of training. Title IV is a recently new, kind of a relatively new fund that was made available to us. That actually enabled us, it enables us to fund a good chunk of Family University, because a big piece of it is for safe and healthy students, and under safe and healthy students includes strong relationships with parents and the community. And so that's where we build those bridges. It also provides us technology, not actual devices so much as training for teachers. And if you remember when we went to distance learning, all of a sudden, all of us had to become experts at Zoom and Flipgrid and Seesaw, and I can't even name all of the different technology pieces there, Google Classroom. So this enabled us to build out training for teachers to become certified in that. And in the midst of the worst of COVID, when we shut down schools, they dropped all requirements and said, go buy whatever technology you need. We understand schools are in trouble, just go get what you need. So that enabled us to do a lot of that. And the other part is well-rounded education. So there we can fund some supplemental art or gifted and talented education or music or things like that. And the reason why they come in tiers like this is because every one of these things is for everyone, everyone. So Title I are supplemental funds that come on top of all of these other things. So we have to pay for the schools to be open, principals, teachers, whatever. We have to pay for these supplemental services for students and for professional development for teachers. And on top of that, students who are struggling receive additional services. So many of the school sites pay for instructional aids or bilingual instructional aids. So kids can work in smaller groups, kids can receive intervention. You pay for additional programs, so kids can do, let's say, Moby Max outside of school to reinforce some skills that were taught. That is in addition to, and then the final supplemental piece is Title III, supplemental funds for English learners. And the reason why I say each one lands on top of each other is English learners are entitled to everything below. This is just an additional piece that's added on for English learner students. Because I can't say, oh, I don't have Title III money, or I can't supplant with Title III what should have been paid for down here, because we don't have to get Title III funds. We apply for it every year. We apply for Title I, we apply for Title II and Title IV. And it's kind of like when you take out a loan for your house. If you give me this money, I promise to pay it back. For a house, in our circumstances, if you give me this money, I promise to use it as it was intended. Title III for English learners, Title I for struggling students, Title II for professional development, Title IV, et cetera. So as they say, nothing is free in this world, right? Money comes, it comes with strings attached. We follow the rules. If we could say, no, thank you, we don't want it. Although it would be very difficult to explain why we don't want to take supplemental funds that would support our kids when we have students who are struggling, right? So that's how that we balance that act. So that was a lot, but that's in a sort of, I like the cake idea. I give credit to Letty Varela who came up with this. This was not mine, because it helps explain it. And I will just say at the base where you see that LCFF, there were a lot of additional funds that came in the last 2 years, kind of emergency COVID emergency response, the governor's emergency response, the Fed's emergency response, a lot of them being one-time funds. And most of that was used for safety, for PPE, for extra aids to do supervision outside when we bring kids on, to have extra devices, to have all the safety, the testing, all of those things, which is outside of our purview in these committees to govern, but they were put there so we could stay open and turn on the lights and open the doors and bring kids back. So before I go any further on that, are there any questions? Because I'm sure I was not 100% clear.
I have a question if
Go
no
for
one
it.
else has a question. So for schools in a different district, like let's say Beverly Hills,
Mhm.
they might not get as much, or they may not get Title I, Title II, Title IV, Title III funds.
That's
Is
correct.
that
It's
correct?
based on your student population. And so you earn a certain amount per student. And the district, for instance, Title I, we look at it, we take some aside for centralized services, for something like summer school, something that we offer to all kids. But the majority is distributed to schools. But if we, our district is roughly about 85% students eligible for Title I. So we get a fair chunk of money. If our eligibility was 20% of our students, we would have much less funding coming in. And therefore, it would probably be targeted assistance at sites that would be just for certain students, whereas we can use Title I's funds for our entire school site as long as its service is for struggling students.
Got it. And the federal funds, like there's a graph that I saw on the district website that I have a question about, but the LCFF base funds, like all of the state funds, I mean, they are like 5-10 times bigger. Like they're way bigger than the federal funds, right? Like the federal funds are like 5% of the total money that the district gets. Is that accurate?
I can't say for sure the actual percentage, but it is much smaller, much smaller. Because if you think about it, just a staff of 30 teachers plus the principal plus the facilities, the building, whatever, that's a much bigger chunk of money than the $100,000 your site gets to, for Title I that you have to use for your students.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
And I'll just say while we're thinking, as you're coming up with your questions, that's why the School Site Council manages the Title I, but the LCAP is what is the plan for all of these supplemental concentration and base funds. And that's what the discussion, and I'm sure at another point, if not today, another meeting, Sunny may have already invited Mylette, who serves on the LCAP Advisory Committee, to share. That's why we bring in the whole group, why DPAC and DLAC must give feedback on these funds, because they are the whole district's big pot of funding. SSCs manage the Title I at your sites because it is a much smaller pot and it's very site specific, whereas the LCAP is a district-wide distribution. All right, I'm going to keep going because I know you have other things in mind for today and I don't want to take over. But again, I think I pretty much explained this already, but you have to be eligible for these funds, but you also have to apply for them. They don't automatically show up at your door. And we apply for them through something called the Consolidated Application each year. And it just basically says, yes, we meet all criteria, and yes, we'd like the money, and yes, we promise that we will spend it correctly. And you can look at our LCAP and our single plans to confirm that we are using it correctly. And every few years, we have the joy of being visited by the state, where they will do an audit on us to ensure that we are using those funds correctly. The last time we did that was 2017, and some of you may remember you were interviewed by different state officials that came down. We did a marvelous job, did very well, because we have very tight controls in place and we make sure our funds are spent correctly.
Julie, I think Nikel has her hand raised. I'm not sure when
yes,
that
you're right.
happened.
Hi. Hi. I'm not driving anymore.
Thank goodness.
I did have hair. I just raised it. I just had a question. So Julie, you mentioned the audit process. So that's about financial oversight, like someone saying, are they spending the money correctly? Is there any accountability to the results of the money being spent, like as it impacts student achievement? Like, is there, so you have this money that's coming in and you're using it correctly, but are we seeing results that we want to see from the funds? Are the students achieving, is there another layer to the oversight? Or is it just, okay, you got this money, you're spending it correctly, great job?
Very good question. Yes, there is that, you're spending it correctly, but ultimately we want results, right? And that's where the school dashboard comes in. The challenge with the school dashboard, which lives on the CDE site, and we can go back and look at, but right now it's got very stale data on it because they use test results from SBAC, which is the test that the 3rd through 8th graders take for English and for math, and our LPAC scores, which is the test that all of our English learners take. And we haven't given those assessments consistently in the last couple of years. They also look at attendance and suspensions and various things about the district. And that is really, and that's a very public site where we, kind of hang our hat on, like, look how well we're doing, or here's our areas of need where we need to improve, both as a whole district, and you can go site by site and you can see how that works. As we return to normal with having assessments regularly, we will have more up-to-date data on that, and we would be able to compare, and because it compares not only absolute scores, but it compares growth over time. And really what we want to show is that we're always moving in the positive direction, that we are moving our kids forward. At this point, it's really incumbent on us. We're using some local assessments to put out what we're doing and to prove that the work we're doing is correct. And that's why I was glad that Sunny mentioned using data in your school site council meetings. So we look at, what do we know about these things? Is it improving what our students can do? Do we have other data that might show that things are happening? As a point for reclassification for English learners, we've had to keep changing the criteria because the tests we were using kept disappearing, right? So we said, well, we don't have SBAC, let's use the benchmark assessment. Let's use star reading assessments. Let's use iReady at the middle school. Those will also tell us if we're making improvements in the absence of SBAC. LPAC, we didn't have a substitute for that, but thankfully we're back on track with that. So that gives us the information. So yes, and it's sort of been in a holding pattern for these last 2 years.
Thank you.
Julie, does the LCAP stakeholder advisory council. I don't know what the name of it is. LCAP. I think it's LCAP. Do they also look at some of that data, and do they make recommendations? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Especially when you're trying to decide, do we spend our money here or do we spend our money here? Well, what is the evidence of, the success of those funds being used this way? And I see Travis wanted to respond to something, and I know Mylette sits on those committees, so she could tell us.
Well, I was just going to respond back to Ms. Price's question. I was trying to think about the California organization that works with schools who perform poorly. I mean, thankfully, we have not been in those categories that are performing low across the state. But those, once upon a time, it used to be, program improvement was the ratings that schools got if they did not score at a certain level. That's gone with No Child Left Behind. But now, if a school district or schools perform at a certain level, they do get support from an organization. It's led by Carl Cohn. I have to look it up. But fortunately, we have not been in those categories. So I have not, or we have not had to have conversations or support from from that organization.
Thank you for clarifying that. Mylette, did you have something to say? I couldn't tell if you were gearing up or not.
Not really. I just noted when they said they look at data at the LCAP, they do. It's a lot of data. It's not only for the programs. If the students have growth in academic achievement, it's also they look at the data from the apps that they were using during distance learning, and that some students still are learning from home, right? The independence study. And yes, a lot of what the LCAP do, it's look at data and see how they can implement programs that will impact the academic growth of the students. So yes, it is all based on how it has been working or how it will work for targeted students. So I guess it's not only seeing one school at a time, it is based on the school, the district wide, and see what programs can be implemented. But yeah, it is complex. I'm learning, but it is interesting, very interesting to see how the money it's going to different programs.
Great, thank you.
And Mylette, that group is comprised of parents and teachers and admins, like it's everybody, right?
That's correct. Yes, I'm sitting next to administrators, teachers, classified staff, even office staff, yes, and parents. So it is a whole group that working together with the same goals. So it is really nice. I mean, to work with that, in my opinion, it is like they do pay attention to my opinion, to my input. It's not only for principals or assistant principals. Yes, if parents want to get involved, being curious about things like this, where the funds are applied, it's a really good way to start.
Excellent. I'm going to just move quickly through. I think I have one more slide because I know Sunny has more to do, and it's already 9:54, but we've talked about these things. But again, the funds are based on our students. Title I is our main purview for this group and for your SSCs. 85% of that money must go to schools, and the school plans govern how that money is spent. Titles 2, 3, and 4 are dispersed to the district office. But again, we take input based on that whole LCAP discussion about what are things that we can do to support our students. So how does the district decide? Well, again, kind of as Mylette said, we have multiple ways of getting input. In the past, we've done a lot of surveys. If you remember the big campaign we did a couple of years ago, Your Voice Matters, Tu Voz Cuenta, we used to get the first round of LCAP going. Now we have moved to more of this committee, this advisory council, to get that information, which again is why it's so important. Such Mylette's here sharing with you what's happening in those meetings. This is a great place for her to hear what parents are thinking, so that information gets brought back, and then you also hear more about what's happening at these meetings. And again, this just gives you some idea of how we've used the funding. I talked about Title IV before. It largely helped us with Family University, technology, certification. Title III is for English learners and newcomers are not necessarily English learners. They may be from another country that is English speaking, but also need support coming to a new country. Title II, again, more for professional development, and Title I is for things that are district-wide, like Kinder Jumpstart, the PSAT, STAR assessments we pay for, Dreambox, things like that, that support all kids. And this is the slide again in Spanish. And again, this is, we report every year. We have to show that we've spent the money, and we must spend 85% of it every year. Otherwise, apparently we don't need it. So we shouldn't be asking for it. So they give us requirements to make sure that we are not only using them correctly, but we're using them on time. And I think that's my last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing, because I know that was like a tornado coming through about school financing. So I know that not all of that's going to stick, but we can certainly talk about it more in the future should you have questions. Oops, honey, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Somehow my slide deck is there it is. I was like,
There you
where's
are.
my slide deck? All right. Well, I mean, we are just about done here. That page empty, or is it invisible? Do you guys see the document?
Taken from superintendent board report at the bottom, but otherwise it's a blue.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I was like, where's the thing? So like this diagram here really has to do with the LCFF that we would make, like we would just be aware of, but we don't actually have any say on those funds. Is that right?
Well, yes and no, because again, all of our thinking is based on the input taken through the surveys and the LCAP advisory committee. Some of the funds that came in were just straight out emergency funds, do what you need to do to stay open and keep kids safe and get testing going. So yes, I would say we didn't have oversight over that, although I don't think anyone would disagree that we needed to keep kids safe. So it went into motion.
Got it. So just really quickly, the other piece of all of this that I think is really important for you guys to know is that the school district also answers, like not only does the school district answer to like these different committees, and these committees get to give input, but they answer to the board, and the school board is the one that makes the decision as to just like general policy decisions. And this slide was shared at the superintendent for the last, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. But last time when we spoke, public comments were allowed virtually. That is no longer true, and I wanted to make sure to make a point of it that everyone knew that if you want to speak at a board meeting, you must physically go into the board meeting and fill out a paper. I'm not actually super clear on the process because I've never done it before, but you have to fill out a paper and in order to be able to speak in person. So
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And do you know if you're allowed to do that like immediately before the meeting, or do you have to do it like a day before?
No, I think you do that when you show up in person.
Okay, perfect. So just so you guys know, but you'll still be able to watch them. And then, I mean, that's really it. Like, here's our school board if you want to reach out to them virtually. And this whole thing will be shared. Unfortunately, our time is up. So thank you so much for coming today, and we will see you guys December 1st, I think. There are a couple of other committees in their meetings. There's a APAC meeting on December 9th. There's our DPAC meeting December 1st, and there's the DLAC meeting November 10th. So you can see Mylette in action. But again, thank you all so much. And then if you have additional questions or comments, please reach out to us. And we'd be happy to do that. So thanks again and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Sunny, I made sure to put a link up for our debrief and sent it to you and Mindy and Mylette because we always get cut off when the meeting ends. So, you know, thank you, Jennifer. Good to see you
So
again.
you just
Thank you,
just
Jen.
emailed that to me?
I
Oh, I
just
see it.
put it in the calendar invite. Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
find it because I think Griselle, are you the host? Who's the host, or is Brenda the host?
Brenda's the host. I'm a host, but I have to go already.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's why I wanted to release you. You're, you're not that bad.
Bye.
Bye,
Good job,
thank
Sunny.
you.
Thank you. Brenda, are you still here or is that your second device?
It looks like that's the one that is her recording device.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we're not being recorded.
Well, I mean,
anymore. Oh, it does say we're still recording.
I imagine that there's a way to cut off this portion.
There is. There is. I'm just going to